When characters have morality, it's usually flawed. This serves to make the character more interesting and possibly make them come to a better understanding in the future. But Pucci's morality is on an entirely different level. He seeks to attain heaven because a psychopathic vampire told him that there is a way to die happily. He does this for God, but maybe it's all an illusion, even to him. Hi, I'm Talon Talks. Let's talk about Pucci and how morality of the highest extent can still be flawed. The difference between humans and animals is that humans seek heaven. Humans ought to lead a life that leads them to heaven. This is what makes humans beautiful. Pucci states this because this is how he views humanity. He says that humans should seek heaven, as he does, so he doesn't take into account the other opinions from other people, because he believes himself to be completely correct in this regard. Pucci states that all things have a purpose to serve. If one does something, it's for self-gain. If they are kind to one, it's for self-gain. That there's no such thing as unconditional love, because unconditional love is a reward to go to heaven. The reason he says this is because humans live life by their purpose. If there is no purpose, then life is simply not worth living. This is especially the case when those humans live a life that strays away from going to heaven. However, using what God has given you is the best way to live life. Using your free will to either believe and live a life that guides you to heaven, or one that doesn't. Look at what drives you. Live life how you want and use what drives you to live that life. Unless it's criminal, but anyway. However, for the sake of this argument, religion is what keeps people going. For some, it's their purpose. So love is the catalyst for people going to heaven. If they weren't religious, would they love? They probably wouldn't. They wouldn't have a reason to go to heaven, and thus no reason to have unconditional love. And he recognizes this. So he uses this purpose for some, but that motivation can be taken in the form of fear or power. Humans need motivation to keep going. Without motivation, they're nothing. Inmates in the prison ask him for forgiveness, though they hadn't earned it. They fear what's on the other side. He uses this to manipulate some, or even uses his charisma to manipulate them. This is what I love about this villain, manipulating those around him to achieve his goal, much like Dio before him. But ironically, Dio was manipulating Pucci to achieve a goal of his own, using Pucci as a means to an end. Pucci is no different from the other henchmen, but he loves Dio so much that he can't see that he's just simply another tool. I love you as men love their god. Dio used Pucci's love for him to obtain that ending he wished to achieve since the beginning of all of this, attaining heaven. However, unlike Dio, Pucci uses both fear and charisma, and not just his fear. Unlike Dio, who only used his charisma, he sends out Whitesnake to keep himself out of the line of sight. He must keep up this ruse that he is just some innocent priest who wants to help these criminals, when in reality he wants unlimited power that will guarantee his wanted ending. By avenging Dio by taking the memory disc from Jotaro and attaining heaven to gain happiness. He trusts Dio to a point where heaven isn't just Dio's goal but his own. Dio preyed on that innocence of Pucci, not in a pedophilic manner, though they were in the same bed at one point. Now this scene was used to display a sense of innocence from Pucci. Pucci asked who was the weakest stand, in a childish manner. Knowing this, Dio used that innocence to build into Pucci that he needs to attain heaven. But he used this to gain full trust of Pucci, as he needed a friend free of all human desires. Do not give what is holy to dogs, and do not throw your pearls before swine, or they will trample them under their feet, and turn and tear you to pieces. Matthew chapter 7, verse 6. The context in this quote is Jesus telling fellow disciples that he does not need to correct those who are not a brother. Do not waste good things on people who won't appreciate them. This quote is used in a genius way here. Pucci is demonstrating this by giving these people stands. And how will they appreciate them? By killing Jolene and bringing Dio's vision to life. He's trying to follow the word of Dio and attain heaven, and he will do anything to do that. Using such a quote to display the exact opposite of what Jesus is used to represent. Death, hatred, murder, all these things are things that aren't embodied into Christ. Jesus is thought of with love and life. None of those prior options. I enjoy when villains are shown throughout most of the story to just simply talk, showing their mental state and their intellect to have the audience completely understand who they are and what they want, and soon show what they are capable of. Pucci is one who plays games, which is the type of character trait that can and should be shown how intelligent a character is. He makes FF choose whether to kill Pucci himself or DNG, the stand user of this thing, he removes a sight to win against weather and come one step closer to his end goal. Though he was almost beat, he even gave FF a stand ability that turns water hot in order to kill FF. Everyone gets convenience. For real, this is just convenient. My favorite example of a character like this is Obito. I have a severe and crippling addiction to Naruto. Obito was only shown talking and never really fighting, until the end when he and Madara went through the shinobi like a bullet train through a coughing baby. We'd learned what he wanted and how he thought, but not exactly who he was, but it was Obito. This was how he thought despite himself not being Madara. Obito and Pucci were manipulated by a stronger force, but were at the end just means to an end to their respectable universes. There are many more quotes that I will use to display how perfect a character Pucci is and how he is used, but this is among my favorite examples. The green baby lies among the corpses of the deceased 36 inmates, with a tree growing from the prisoners seeming to reach for a god to help them, under what appears to be the Tree of Knowledge. This scene and description does two things. Shows how abstract this is compared to the rest of Part 6, showing a turning point in the series, specifically in Part 6, but also gives us this slight amount of symbolism. 36 is a very symbolic number here, as the number 36 is foreshadowing what is soon to happen to Pucci and the green baby. They fuse together and eventually attain heaven. The meaning of 36 is
symbolizes achieving a balanced life,
showing that Pucci and Dio have ascended the other stand users such as Kira and Diavolo, by what is to happen later, Pucci being able to manipulate gravity. Pucci's ideologies are very well, but his mentalities are something that I feel weren't talked about enough. The reason why people lose. Shame leads men to defeat, and men die to compensate for their shame. Thoughts of shameful regrets such as, why did I do that earlier, weakens men and leads them to their defeat. I didn't make an error by failing to see the guard's transceiver. No, this is the trial. There are still ways to prevail. Jolene Kujo doesn't know who I am yet. Nothing has changed yet. I haven't lost them either. True victors are those who can reign over the circumstances given to them. Pucci is more interesting as almost half the story is by his words. We see a lot of him, but we don't see him fight. This is made up for by his words. Pucci is displaying his determination to fight for his cause, to show that no matter what, he will come out on top. Dio, Cars, Kira, and Diavolo fell to this fate, but that was because they felt ashamed because they were defeated, or at the very least, fear. Pucci doesn't have fear nor shame. He will not fall to that when God is calling him. He is not questioning what Dio has told him, or how he has guided him due to his position, but he is making an active attempt to use what he has to come out on top. Dio's first need is his stand. His second need is a trustworthy friend, one who can control his desires, such as the desire for power, money, fame, and sex. One who chooses the laws of God above man's laws. Dio also must have courage to let go of his stand, just once. His dying stand will absorb the convicts and it will give birth to the green baby, which is the reborn Dio. The baby will be interested in the words spoken by the friend. Spiral Staircase, Rhinoceros Beetle, Desolation Road, Fig Tart, Rhinoceros Beetle, Via Dolorosa. I probably butchered that. Rhinoceros Beetle, Singularity Point, Yoto, Angel, Hydrangea, Rhinoceros Beetle, Singularity Point, Secret Emperor. This is storytelling, used to break down Dio and his motives. He needs these things to attain his goal. He must also have courage to let go of his stand, allowing his character to grow and soon become part of Pucci. We can see that Pucci believes in morality when he says that Dio can stay until the sun sets, and when he would not report him. He looks for the best in people and will allow these things to slide if they do nothing. But what shows his morality being flawed are several things. He broke up his sister and brother, that's a sentence I thought I'd never say, by paying people instead of doing it himself, resulting in this failure of the situation and death of his sister, as well as gaining an enemy in the form of Weather, his own brother. He says that he would do anything to get his sister back, and because of this he remembers or hears the words of Dio. Do you believe in the force of gravity? We met for a reason. If you wish, come see me. It's ironic that he believes in Dio. We already know that he loves Dio like a man loves their god, despite Dio having this devil's charm. And this charm Dio has is corrupting Pucci so much, even convincing him to kill Wes. So to get to Dio, he must kill Weather. Well, not kill him, but take him out and lie in wait for the right time to use him. He wants to meet Dio, and what happened to his sister is the reason they met. Pucci didn't realize it at the time, but he had to meet Dio if he wanted to get his sister back. Once a life is lost, you cannot bring it back, but it's up to you. If you wish, from deep within your heart, you can retrieve her memory. It's the memories of her heart. This is your awakening. Dio is using the weakness of Pucci to attain heaven and know true happiness, and this forcing gravity he mentions. Gravity plays a huge part in JoJo's, as it's symbolic of fate and what can come of it. Pucci learns that gravity is his calling, and to overcome fate, he must overcome gravity. Once he activates his new ability, we see his new stand, and I'm sorry, but what in the living hell is that? This is Seamoon, Pucci's new stand. It has control over gravity, or symbolically control over fate. To achieve happiness, humans must bear a curse to overcome fate. The trial Pucci had to overcome was the Joestars bloodline. So Pucci's battle isn't over yet, but he is already so close. All he needs is to take out Jolene, and fate will bow to him. And so, with one swift punch to the chest, Pucci overcame Jolene. The ambient music and the emotionless of Jolene, along with the shock on Anastasia's face, were the only things you had or could watch on the screen. However, Emporio gets a text from the help that Jolene needs in this situation. My calls aren't going through. The gravitational anomaly seems to have sent a satellite out of orbit. Are you Emporio? I don't know exactly what's going on, but I can sense that my daughter and priest have met. Protect Jolene, just until I arrive, that's all I ask. She must have discovered how to counter his gravity. That's the only way she could have survived. She's alive, but just barely. Jotaro Kujo. Jolene overcomes Pucci's fate manipulation, and that makes him worried. When he sees Jolene, he shows absolute terror that she is still alive, and can possibly be his downfall. It's almost like with cars, but Pucci will not relent. He will overcome this trial, as well as show to all that he is worthy of attaining heaven. He's so close that by the point of nearly being able to attain heaven, he's lost nearly all sense of morality. Pucci thinks that he's won, but not so fast. Jolene's help has arrived. Jotaro Star Platinum punches Pucci through a window, and this scene was perfect. Pucci has yet another obstacle in his past, for God gives his toughest battles to his strongest of warriors, and Pucci embodies those words and takes on the challenge. Not much of note happens, but soon, Pucci is able to move towards the sky and make his plan go even smoother. And so Jotaro, with the upper hand, throws a harpoon at Pucci, knowing that this will take him out, but something isn't right. Pucci has entered the world of Jotaro. Pucci's ability has given him the strength to finally overcome fate. Even though he was struck by the harpoon, without this, he would have been possibly killed, dodging fate and attaining heaven. Father in heaven, guide me. Watch over me, that I shall not stray from my path. I give myself to thee. Pucci claims to use his ability to guide the human race to true happiness, but perhaps this was more for the benefit of Dio rather than the human race, and he didn't even realize it, not taking into account how everyone across the globe would feel about this, but only what Dio manipulated him into doing. Soon, when Pucci finally corners them, Jotaro stops time, and he is just about to stop Pucci with one punch, but Jolene is there next to him, with knives raining down on her. Pucci clearly read Jotaro's thoughts and used this to his advantage here. It's like earlier when I said that Pucci does not play games. He obviously thought for days, no, years on end, on how he was going to attain heaven. Jotaro, with no time spare, strikes at Pucci, but he's too late and 2 steps behind. This is using his earlier words about using your surroundings and position to win to the max. Pucci uses the weaknesses of Jotaro against him, using what Jotaro was put through on his own daughter. This is pure storytelling, and there's a reason why Pucci is now my favorite antagonist in JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, behind only Cars. Pucci picks off the group one by one until only Jolene and Emporio are left. Jolene knows that Pucci is unstoppable, and allows Emporio to get away alone, with hope that he can defeat Pucci. However, with nothing but the disc left, Emporio uses it, and to the astonishment of myself and thousands across Twitter and TikTok, Pucci is put down due to Made in Heaven not being complete as they weren't at Cape Canaveral. As they weren't at Cape Canaveral in this new universe. But the day was not safe. Jolene, Jotaro, Anastasia, and all others were killed. But maybe Emporio will meet them again. Sometime at least. Pucci's morality is flawed for many reasons, using anarchy and personal ambitions to justify attaining heaven and bringing this happiness to humanity. He sees this as a reward for humanity, and so he believes that he's doing the right thing. However, his ideology isn't even his own. He does believe in this, but he was manipulated by Dio into believing this. However, something I've noticed with all these characters. What all these characters had built into them was deterring fate. Dio paused time to delay fate. Kira rewinded time to do the same. Diavolo skipped time to get around it, but fate was far too strong and powerful for them to overcome. Gravity is symbolic of fate, and if gravity is fate itself, then Pucci's controlling and manipulating it had shown that he had overcome fate. They were all bound to fate, but not Pucci. Pucci was the only one to overcome it, and rise beyond it. Being the only one to obtain what he had sought out from the very beginning, attaining heaven. Pucci may be an incredibly intelligent villain, but intelligence does not equal morality. Perhaps you'll have what you believe to be a higher understanding of morality, but what you perceive isn't enough to base your entire morale on. Green Baby makes everyone smaller, and the closer they get to him, making it to where they will never reach him. One must imagine Sisyphus happy. Pucci entering Jotaro's world reminds me completely of when Jotaro did the same to Dio. Almost like Pucci is showing Jotaro that he, much like Jotaro's old self, is not bound to supposed fate, or fate in the general sense.